join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Sussex-Wantage Regional School District Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the school building and notice of said meeting sent to the New Jersey Herald and the Star Ledger.
Sussex-Wantage Regional School District will be the responsive, caring, child-centered community. Our mission is to educate each individual to become a competent, lifelong learner, and productive, responsible citizen. By providing challenging opportunities in a safe environment for partnership with families, schools, and communities.
All right, at this time we will move on to the report of the superintendent of schools.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. To kind of highlight some of the district happenings for the upcoming school year. One of the more important things that you don't see is we currently last year used 2 notification systems. Right? So we use one called Honeywell, we use one called Real Time. That does your phone calls, your emails, things like that. So beginning this year, we're switching over entirely to Real Time. And behind the scenes, Mr. Kronsky in our central office has been practicing with that. It's all gone generally well. The only caveat is that we need parents and guardians to make sure that all their information is updated in real time, their contact information. So we're going to turn on the PERB portal. We anticipate Monday, so everybody gets access to their class lists and teacher names and things like that. And all those documents that you have to check off that you read at the beginning of the school year. So the caveat is that before you get to see all that information, we're going to need you to check off that your contact information is accurate. So you're going to be prompted to do that. So that's something we're asking you to kind of pay attention to. Open houses for all the schools, Thursday, August 26th, Monday, August 30th from 9 to 2. So it's very customary for parents and guardians to take their children to the school, kind of walk around, see your classes, that kind of thing. The only challenge, a little bit of a challenge, is Lawrence School is going to be seal coated again, line striped again for the front and back of the main portion of the building. So folks who are going over to Wantage will be parking on the basketball court area and being let in through that 3rd, 4th grade main entrance. Reminder for incoming kindergarten students, Ms. Anderson needs the immunization records and physicals before school starts, so please mail them, fax them, drop them off. Same thing for Sussex Middle School incoming 6th grade students. We'd appreciate you dropping those off, mailing them again before school starts. School schedule. So this year we're going to implement fully in-person school schedule, as traditional as possible. There are no cohorts, no hybrids, no parental option for virtual instruction at this time. Just to highlight some of the things that we're going to continue doing proactively in response to the pandemic. Student staff safety and hygiene. We still have hand sanitizing stations throughout the building. I met with our facility director. He's ordered more refills, things of that nature. Attendance and illness, as always. If your child's ill, staff members ill, we ask you to stay home, not to report to work. Social distancing to the extent possible. We're still going to practice social distancing. The state kind of gives us a little leeway this year with that. Face coverings. I'm sure many people in the room have been made aware that Governor Murphy has mandated via an executive order that we wear face coverings in school. Transportation, our buses this year will be at capacity or thereabouts. Students are required to wear masks on buses as well in school. Health screening, so you may recall last year we were screening students for temperatures as they were incoming. We're not going to institute that practice this year. We're going to shift that responsibility to home. So we're going to ask parents, screen your children at home, make sure everybody's feeling well before they come to school. If not, stay home. Symptomatic students and staff, very similar to what we did last year. The unfortunate reality is we're still going to have circumstances of quarantine. We're still going to have circumstances where people were ill, unfortunately. Our nurses' offices have been equipped with areas of what I would call isolation, more conducive to what you might see in a hospital facility with curtains and things like that. So anybody who's sick can stay in that isolated area. So we're just going to continue that practice. Visitors to the building, we're going to start the school year off. What I would say is fairly conservative and restricting visitation to only those really pertinent circumstances. Facility cleaning and sanitizing, we're going to keep up the same practices that we employed last year. We've got a lot of equipment, a lot of sanitizing agents and chemicals that are permitted to be used in school to do those things. One of them is called a halo machine. So if we have an instance where we perceive COVID in a classroom, at the end of the day, we roll it into the room and it kind of neutralizes all the infectious material in the room, or at least the market is doing so. Meals. So everyone is, all students are eligible for free lunch this year. At SMS and West, we're going to kind of continue what we did last year. Students ate in the cafeteria. At West, sometimes we're going to use an additional room or two. So Mr. Gregory will continue doing that. Orange School, we're going to start off conservatively using the classrooms for lunch like we did last year. Field trips, extracurricular activities. So we're trying to kind of pick up with the traditional school year, instituting extracurricular activities to the greatest extent possible. Field trips will be judged on a case-by-case basis, like they always are, in connection with those health reports that we get for our region. Right now, the one I got today was yellow, but I think for the first time in a while, kind of the central eastern portion of the United States, New Jersey rather, was deemed orange. So, actually had a meeting with the Department of Health, Department of Education yesterday, and the prediction is that New Jersey is going to continue to climb, and when they see schools open, we're going to have cases relative to younger people, 18 and under, more prevalent with COVID. Give you a little bit of background on that meeting. The epidemiologist for the county, Ron Shaddad, indicated, just for your own knowledge, that about 55% of our county is vaccinated. About 8%, I think she said, 5 to 8% of the cases that they currently see are 18 and under. And again, she predicts that the state, is moving towards an orange, county is moving towards an orange. In-person learning, as I mentioned, all in-person learning this year, parents do not have the option of 100% remote. Technology needs, as always, Process Department's been diligent. Anybody who needs technology equipment for the future, we're on the ready to purchase a number of Chromebooks and devices and things like that. Our before and after care programs in full swing, so we'll also be offering that. Facility information. We have the well project at the Lawrence School. Is probably one of the biggest projects we worked on while I've been with the district. That's they're kind of moving equipment around, getting ready to start that. They've asked some questions of our architectural firm. We're going to shipping container back there, so we'll be moving that over the next couple of days to the lower parking area. The ramp out front of Sussex Middle School, we had questions from, I think, Mrs. Whitty last time, or maybe it was just a private conversation, but the question was, do we need handrails on the incline portion of that? The architectural firm evaluated that and said we don't, so if we wanted them, it would be our decision to do that and our cost. But they perceive that it needs code for no handrail at this time in the rise run ratio. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Gall. At this time, we will move on to audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district. Are there any audience remarks?
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Lisa Barenfeld. I'm the SWIA president for Sussex-Wantage School District. I'm here tonight to address a policy that I saw at 3 o'clock today. It's kind of last minute, which didn't give us ample time to really prepare or even request a discussion. I was told that this policy resolution had no weight, no power, but I was told it was just symbolic. My concern is, if it's just symbolic, it definitely sends a message. And it definitely sends a message saying what your stance is. So as I reread this to you, I want you to think about it for a second. The Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education hereby implores Governor Murphy to retract EO 251 and allow school boards to make decisions concerning the health and safety of its school community. Be it further resolved that the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education also asks that Senator Stephen Oraho, Assemblyman Parker Space, and Assemblyman Harold Wirtz continue to represent the constituents of Sussex and Wantage as it concerns parents' ability to actively and locally participate in discussions, decisions concerning their children and school boards, authority to make decisions affecting its students, staff, and visitors. My points are this. This addendum again was just added after 3 p.m. today, giving SWIA inadequate time to request a discussion or adequately prepare properly. It's unimaginable to me that a decision of this nature would be made without inviting SWIA to the discussion. Since when are we naming politicians in school board resolutions? Is this a political stance, or is this health concern of your staff and your students? We all know that children under the age of 12 are unable to receive the vaccine at this time, which is almost our entire population, the whole entire school district. This is not a high school. This is not a political issue, it's a health issue. Unmask the students, you say, in all of your political social media posts. Is your staff at all important to you? If your staff becomes sick and they cannot be in the schools, then who will be here to teach your students? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Hi, I'm Dawn Ricky. I'm a student in middle school and the elementary school. And my concern and question is that I understand that we are mandated right now with masks, which is fine. I've heard other school districts are fighting against it. Apparently, I guess one might be also. But in Murphy's statement, there is a thing about they don't have to wear masks during extreme heat. Now, how do we understand what that would entail? I understand some classrooms have air conditioning, some don't. So how do we know how to prepare our children what to expect? The other question I have is what are you planning on doing, especially with the middle school, about lockers? Because the kids now need to get used to being able to handle dealing with lockers before they go into high school. And even in elementary school, are they planning on switching classrooms again? Because that is, I think, myself, is a big part of them growing older. So I just say no, I'm sorry, this is not a long time to ask those questions, but those are questions that was hopefully getting answered.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Murphy. Just the locker question up front of the classrooms. Sussex Middle School is planning to take advantage of the locker system. To the greatest extent possible, they try to, distance students in the locker circumstances. We've also, and one of the challenges with the COVID experience is quarantine and the rules concerning that. And that, we talked about last year how that really has the potential to cripple your operations as a school district. So when somebody becomes ill and you have to identify who's in close proximity to them, and those people have to go in quarantine, it can greatly affect your staff, your student population. So that threshold that was reviewed yesterday with the Department of Health is right now remaining at a 15-minute threshold cumulatively throughout the day. So if I interact with you for 15 minutes throughout the day. So right now it doesn't look like that would be the case with locker usage. So, it seems like it's a flexible opportunity for us with the amount of time that students may have to interact with. Switching at the other schools doesn't occur as much. When I was at Wantage School, we actually switched homerooms, so 2 classes would switch into physical different spaces. That really doesn't happen anymore as much. The question I got most often at large school last year was when can we have students go to specials, like go to the library, go to the art room, the music room, because the onset of the year we're trying to be very conservative. and make the teacher come to the classroom. So as the year progressed, we facilitated that, we permitted that as we saw things were going on. So we're gonna start the school year off with that. So students will be switching. The other question was the extra, excessive heat, right? So one of the challenges for tonight, and the questions you probably have pertain to things like excessive heat, there's some other bullet points that the governor has in his executive order that, provides some opportunity for no mask, things like, having doctor's notes and getting those doctor notes critiqued by our doctor, that kind of thing. Last year, I kind of felt comfortable to one extent towards the end of the year taking advantage of the excessive heat, because the governor talked about it at the press conference. It was becoming exceedingly hot. Some of the rationale for that was we were at the end of the year, it was like 2 weeks left of school, the case rates were coming down, they were predicted to be green if we weren't already, and then we're moving into summer. So we had a problem at that point. You were going to be in the summer, and you weren't going to cripple your operations as a school district. So that's very different than what's happening right now. Long story short, at the meeting yesterday, what we were told as a county superintendent roundtable, the Department of Education, the Department of Health, is that new rules have been presented to the governor. They're in his office, on his desk, what have you. And he hasn't issued them to school districts yet. So what I gather happens is they have a panel of experts who, kind of mull through all of these things, come up with recommendations for the governor, and he reviews them, and then issues them to school districts. So my understanding is those are going to be coming out before school starts. I can't tell you if that's going to be in a week, in a couple of days. But I'm hesitant to tell you a number threshold on what excessive heat means at this time, because they haven't defined it for us. I'm hopeful it's in that document. Department of Health was hopeful it's in that document. I don't know if it's going to be in that document, but the decision's going to lie with us. But that's anticipated to come out, so kind of waiting for that. But you're walking a balance of, it's all a safety mechanism, right? You're walking a balance of government's telling you that masks enhances safety, so you're looking at that in the context of COVID. But you all know if you're running around 90-degree weather trying to wear a mask, you hyperventilate, you're not feeling well. So you're trying to balance that. That's where my decision process was last year.
Any other public comments?
My name is Barbara. I'm just wondering if we're gonna, the district is gonna decide if the schools are gonna wear the mask, and we're not gonna go by Governor Murphy's mandate, and it's gonna be locally the district, and we decide it's optional. Are you gonna bring back the remote learning so I can protect my daughter? If you're not gonna go by what the governor says, and it's gonna be optional, if these kids wanna wear a mask or not, I should have the option to keep my daughter home, and she should have the remote learning.
Ma'am, the resolution is not to say that we're not going to wear masks. We have to follow the mandate.
And from what I'm hearing from everybody else, this is so we can get the mask lifted in the school district. From what I'm
so-
hearing from the people here.
Yeah, if I can be clear, the executive order, we don't have any wiggle room with that. As of now, you should anticipate having to wear a mask, not just your child in the building, but visitors to the building during school hours, that kind of thing. I know a lot of people, it's a very contentious issue. I know that there's a lot of contradictions that people, research and see, well, you have to wear a mask in school, but you don't have to wear a mask here. I get all that. It's created division in my own household, right? I have a difference of opinion, and Mrs. Paul has a difference of opinion. So I understand that it's a contentious issue. But as of now, that executive order is we have to wear a mask in school during school session hours. What Mr. D'Agostino is referring to with this resolution is more of the board considering their perspective on mask wearing. You'll find out ultimately what it is, and then trying to persuade the governor to make a consideration, to let those decisions be made locally. Not to say that, if the governor announced that right away, I would decide that one way or another. It'd be a collaborative decision, but it wouldn't even necessarily mean that you wouldn't have masks on or anything like that.
But
It's more a local control issue.
Any other public comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Steve Bassani. I live at East Shore Road in Wantage. I'm a father of 5 children, one who's in college, and the youngest one isn't even in school yet, and a couple that are in some of these schools here. They're all healthy through all this pandemic stuff, and I've worked through it myself. I've been to a lot of places in a couple different states and cities and hospitals and power plants, And I've seen more homeless people than I have seen sick people. And we're all mostly kind of thinking the same thing about this mask problem. And obviously, there's not much we can do about it if the governor's controlling our funding and all that. You know, some of us want to stay home, go ahead, stay home. Some of us want our kids in school without masks. I mean, they need to learn, they need to see their teachers' mouths moving when they're pronouncing things. I mean, there's list goes on and on why we shouldn't be wearing masks. And if you think we should be wearing masks, then maybe you should stay home. But regardless, my question is, what can we do and what are we doing to get our voice to the governor? Not that he would listen or change his mind, but what can we do? Are we sending this to him directly? Is it going to somebody else that's just throwing it out the window?
Mr. do you want to comment on that, Mr. Bates?
Yes, if the resolution passes tonight, we will be sending a copy to the governor's office, as well as Assemblyman Worth's base, Senator Oroho. They're obviously part of this because the state legislature gave Governor Murphy the authority to do this. So we would want them to know the district's stance on, again, not for masks or anti-masks, but local control and being able to make the decisions for ourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to the board secretary certification.
NJAC 6A 23A-16.10C3, I certify that as of July 31st, 2021, no line item account has encumbrances and expenditures which in total exceed the line item appropriation in violation of NJAC 6A 23A-16.10.
Thank you. We will move on to the approval of board minutes for July 29th, 2021, regular and executive sessions. Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second. Thank you. Any discussion on the approval of board minutes? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Liddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Kukuda?
Yes.
Mrs. Malcolm? Yes. Mrs. Manzano?
Yes.
Mrs. Stahl?
Staying on both.
Mrs. Gilberto? Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Mr. Cruz?
We have no need for executive session on agenda items, so we will move on to the presentation of agenda items.
Under personnel, I'd like to move items 1 through 24, noting that on item number 20, I'm tabling, removing the reading club moderators for Wantage School, and we'll be reissuing it.
You looking for a motion? Stahl looking for a second? Thank you. Any discussion on personnel?
Yeah. Okay, we did, it is 24, right? My numbers were wrong, or 24. Right?
Yes.
Just curious, on number 15, 16, and 17, same position, 2 at one rate and 1 at the other. Just wondering why the difference is all.
Yeah, so these are the recommendations of Mr. Croncy's evaluation of the candidates that some had experience, some had no experience.
Makes sense. And as I look at number 24, with the substitute rates, are we possibly going to go back and revisit the IT department rates? Or does Mr. Konsky feel that where we're at now?
I can certainly review them.
I'm sorry, you did
IT rate
for
for the new hire. The structure pay.
Anybody in the IT department? I mean, where I'm looking.
So you're looking at the teacher sub, you're saying they make an X amount of money, and then you're comparing it to the IT
Right.
person saying they're making.
Right.
you have anything further? Any other discussion on personnel? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Walmsley? Yes. Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Mrs. Randall?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilberry? Yes. Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Policy, I'd like to move items 1 and 2.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on policy? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Mr. Walmsley? Yes. Mrs. Randall?
Yes.
Mrs. Stahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilberry? Yes. Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Under finance, I'd like to move items 1 through 11.
Thank you. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah. On number 3, is the professional day travel. Right, is that estimated cost, is that for the travel or for the actual program?
Are
Who do you refer?
Actual travel, the travel resolution,
Yes.
the 3 people,
Yeah,
that is a registration fee.
they're virtual.
Virtual.
Right. Okay. Maybe next time we could note that and maybe change travel in the means of
Registration.
registration or whatever, you know? Just so there's no.
Or any other discussion on finance?
Yep, number 11, when is that being done, the epoxy over at the, here, floors? I mean, we're confident that can be done.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head. I mean, it's a very, we did it in one school several years ago. Goes right over the tile. It's a pretty, I'm gonna say maybe a day or 2 procedure. So,
It should be done before school.
very normal.
Any other discussion on finance? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Walmsley? Yes. Mrs. Stahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Mrs. Randall?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilberry? Yes. Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Referring to the addendum under personnel, I'd like to move items 1 through 3.
Looking for a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second? Thank you. Any discussion on personnel on the addendum? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mrs. Stahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Mr. Walmsley? Yes. Mrs. Randall?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilberry? Yes. Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Under policy, I'd like to move item number 1.
Looking for a motion? Thank you. Looking for a second? Thank you. Any discussion on policy on the addendum?
Yes. I just wanted to take a minute to address Lisa's concerns. When I observed the social media post by our president a couple of weeks ago stating that he wanted legal action, I texted him and questioned this and questioned the politicizing that he was doing. And I contacted the lawyer who said that it really couldn't be done because of the amount of money it would take to get it through. And just all the legal issues that would, happen. I was not consulted by anyone on this resolution. I saw it at the same time you guys did, probably a couple of hours earlier. I don't support the resolution. I'm an educator, as many of you know. And so I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to go backwards, but if it means that I'm going to have my kids in front of me all day, every day, all of my students, I'll wear 4 masks. And so I see in the news every morning that the states down in the south are opening and closing very quickly because students are entering hospitals. I can't vote on this in a positive manner with that on my conscience, so I will be voting no.
I'd just like to point out for the public that this was on our weekly rundown, which was sent out Friday, as far as that there would be a
I did
resolution.
not see the resolution.
There was, the resolution came out today.
Right,
But nobody had any feedback, comments on the resolution.
you wouldn't have
until
taken
it
it
came
off
out today.
anyway.
The majority of the board, in my
Yes, I know,
estimation,
I know,
believes
you always
in
mention that.
this. And then this is not a political stand. I don't believe it's the government's job to keep us safe. I believe it's our job to keep us safe. So, again, social media is an outlet to reach the constituency. I'll say right now that a lot of the board doesn't agree with what I post. A lot of the board does agree with what I post. It's always my voice. I never post on behalf of the board. And, sometimes things are taken out of context. Sometimes things are taken perfectly in context. And I own all of it. So again, this was discussed on Friday in the weekly rundown. Nobody on the board had any input as to the.
What was put in it, nobody had any input on it except you.
We were told, the board was told that there was going to be a resolution that was going to be against the executive order, and to please let me know if anybody had any input. I did not hear from anybody regarding the resolution that is here on the agenda tonight. Is there any other comments on policy? On the agenda? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad. Yes. Mrs. Stahl. No. Mrs. O'Malloy. Yes. Mrs. Rankin.
No,
Mrs. Whitty.
Yes.
Mrs. Delbarry. Yes. Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Under finance, I'd like to move items 1 and 2.
Looking for a motion, please. Thank you. Looking for a second? Thank you. Any discussion on finance? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad. Yes. Mrs. Stahl.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Malloy. Yes. Mrs. Rankin.
yes,
Mrs. Whitty.
Yes.
Mrs. Delbarry. Yes. Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And under special services, I'd like to move items 1 and 2.
Looking for a motion, please. Thank you. Looking for a second? Thank you. Any discussion on special services? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad. Yes. Mrs. Stahl.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Malloy. Yes. Mrs. Rankin.
yes,
Mrs. Whitty.
Yes.
Mrs. Delbarry. Yes. Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
Motion carried.
At this time, we will move on to unfinished business. Does anyone on the board have any unfinished business they would like to discuss? All right, seeing none, we will move on to new business. Does anyone have any new business?
I do.
Discuss? Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I just wanted to take this opportunity, in 2 weeks, we'll be entering a new school year. I think I can speak with all educators that last school year was such a hard, challenging year. We thought that we would kind of enter this new year as more normal than it was last year, and that's probably not going to happen. I just wanted to say thank you to all of our teachers. I think that last year we were put under a microscope, and everybody thinks that they can do our job, and many of them can't. So I just wanted to say thank you. I watched many districts in New Jersey not opening because of concern with their school buildings, and that didn't happen here, and that's because of our teachers. And in light of the social media posts by our president, I just wanted to let you know that he doesn't speak for me, and so I wanted to thank all of the teachers.
Thank you, Mrs. Ranzan. I too would like to thank all of our teachers, as I have many times. I support our teachers, and I will continue to support our teachers. Any other new business?
Now, I would just like to say that I feel the same way Colleen does, and yes, thank you to all our teachers. Of course, we couldn't have done this without you. I sit here and I'm on the verge of tears, to be honest with you. Just because I'm young. But, the statements that are made by pretty much anyone else on the board, if it's not made at the board meeting or whatever, it doesn't mean that any of us are necessarily in agreement with whatever anyone else should say. I don't like social media, never will. It's probably a great tool. I personally don't like it. But as far as our teachers go and our staff, we did an excellent job. And I'm very thankful for all of them.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. Any other comments, new business?
I want to also thank the teachers, because I think they really had everything just thrown at them, and they had to decide how to work it and how to do it. And I think they did a fantastic job. The kids were still learners and everything, but it was a hard thing for the teachers to do, something totally new, and for that, I congratulate you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stoll. Any other new business?
Mr. Jazz, I received a resignation letter from Mrs. Steele today that I'd like to just read into record.
Sure.
Hello, I moved out of Wantage Township into Sussex Borough, so I need to step down from my seat on the Sussex-Wantage Board, EOE, effective immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Riker. Can we get a motion to accept Mrs. Steele's resignation? Thank you, Mrs. Stoll. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. Discussion. I'd like to start just by thanking Mrs. Steele for your time on the board. You always show up. You're always open-minded. I've seen you change on opinions multiple times, stick strong on your opinions multiple times. And I could say it's an absolute pleasure to have worked with you for the last couple of years. I know you moved to Sussex Borough, but Sussex Borough is still part of this board. So hopefully, we could see you again in the future. But thank you for your service to our community and for everything you do for our kids and our teachers and our town. Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, roll call.
Mrs. Small,
Yes.
Mrs. Biddy,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewel Malapai,
Yes.
Mrs. Ranjan,
Yes.
Mrs. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes,
motion carried.
thank you. At this time, we will move on to audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we do have to go into executive session for non-agenda items.
Ms. Parisi.
I'm sorry, there's a public comment. Thank you.
Sorry, I just raised I'm sorry, I was a little late to the meeting, so if this was already covered, I apologize. My name is Melissa Parisi, I have 3 kids in the district, and I just have some, I'm sure as all the parents and the kids that are at home with the anxiety building before coming to the school year, if there's been any decisions made on things like lockers for the middle school, class trips, extracurricular activities, and maybe this isn't the right forum, Mr. Ball, maybe I should call you.
No, you missed it. Well,
I did.
That's okay. Yeah, lockers are, we're using lockers at the middle school, we're switching at the other 2 schools with those specials at this time. We're trying to balance the notion of still being proactive and conservative and safe in the context of trying to give kids the best experience possible, normal experience possible. I think Mrs. Ranzan, just to echo her statement, we thought we were kind of going into a school year that's going to be fairly normal. We're going to try to keep it that way. field trips, case by case basis, kind of judging in concert with the outbreak reporting of the region of the state, when people want to go. Extracurriculars, we're approving on a kind of like a by-season basis, so, one of the challenges that happened financially in the past was that if, you approved somebody for something, you had to pay out on it even if you didn't offer the program. So we're trying to be strategic about that, we want to offer for the kids, so, we approved a bunch of them today. Was there anything else?
Yeah, one other question. Has there been any analysis done looking at, say, for any of the grade levels, but looking at, I know we didn't do standardized testing this year, but we did do maps at the end of the year. So is anyone looking at, say, like the results of the maps test from June in 5th grade 2019 compared to June for another average 5th grader in 21, just to see that there's.
Yeah, it's a really great question. The response to our behind the scenes response to any kind of deficiencies was always the mantra of like, let's just get kids in school regular. So that's
Absolutely.
kind of, but Mrs. Demolakis is our curriculum director, and very fortunate we hired a response to intervention coordinator, I believe is in the back of the auditorium. So she'll be working in concert with Mrs. Demolakis to kind of do that kind of thing. Mrs. Demolakis kind of has that underway already.
That's awesome. And are we looking at like our deficit compared to deficits of other school districts to kind of see?
Yeah, that's a little more challenging because, so like take the MAPS assessment, for example, not everybody uses that, right? So, yeah. But, to give you an idea, again, I think as Mrs. Ranzan mentioned, there's a number of school districts, I was interviewing, final interview for a candidate who we approved to work in a school district, used to work in a school district in New Jersey, kind of like where I grew up, and I was like, hey, how'd you guys make out? We're here. Oh, the kids were never in school in person, so. In that context, as harsh as some people were last year about criticisms and things of that nature, I can say the teachers did a remarkable job, the parents did a remarkable job, and you're probably a little bit ahead in certain areas.
That's great to hear that the analysis is happening so that you can kind of see, where we fall, where the kids are. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Yes.
Piggyback on her a little bit, so I have two children, one is a brainiac and has no problem with economics, the other one, not so much. So I definitely see how he's not progressed in last year. He did good, teachers are awesome, they did their best, I'm not saying anything on them, situations happen, and I know my child did not progress the way he should have if COVID didn't happen. And he was offered summer school, but unfortunately we couldn't get him there. Is there any programs that are going to be working for the working family to try to bring up our children back where they're supposed to be?
Yeah, we'll be announcing, a variety of different things in the planning and budgeting process last year is kind of where all of that started. It starts with things like we hired a significant number of more teachers, trying to keep class sizes a little small. We'll offer after-school programs. In the Wantage School and Orange School, we're bringing on reading specialists, so that's kind of another level of intervention for kids. But we kind of want to get them in the building and see where they're at with the pre-assessments, one of the other challenges we're having is that Wantage in middle school, as it stands now, has to take a standardized assessment. Looks like something called the Strong Assessment, opposed to NJSLA or PARC years ago. So we're trying to balance, administering that with those MAP assessments that we can draw comparisons to. So we're kind of right in the middle of that.
Now, with the after-school help, will you be able to offer a way home? Because for me personally, I don't get home until after 6 sometimes, so I would be able to pick him up at like 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, probably very unlikely that we'll be able to offer transportation. That's something that we always want to do, but not just in this region of the state, but across the nation, there's a significant shortage of bus drivers, and it impacts us on this local level.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Keep down, I'm part of the public, right?
Sure.
Okay. So, before I said these things, and in the past I've said teachers, and then I say staff, because I don't want to leave anybody out. But I really feel the need to say that there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes. obviously not just the teachers. I mean, we talk about it, Kaylee, I mean, that's our director of curriculum, and, you know, she sets up the curriculum, tries to figure out what these kids could even be doing at home, or what do we do when they're here, and all this other kind of stuff. And a lot of our staff have been here, not during school hours, many hours during the summer. Yeah, they get paid for it, but they're here a long time. Same thing with the IT department. I mean, our IT department, they, you know, we were starting to go into Chromebooks and doing a little bit more technology-wise, but this last 18 months, unfortunately, we're gonna end up saying last 2 years, at least. Everybody has been challenged to go above and beyond, and definitely way above the majority of our district has done its best to try and make everyone comfortable and keep everyone safe. So I just wanted to add that. I mean, you know, I could go through all the departments, but then I'd leave people out. But, you know, it's easy to say teachers because you hear school, you think teachers, you know, but it's really, there's a lot that goes on. And we have a lot of deeply concerned, caring adults in the district, along with our community.
Thank you, Mrs. Wood. Any other comments? Public or board? All right, we're gonna move on to executive session. For non-agenda items, no action will be taken. Be approximately, I guess, that. Probably. About 30 minutes. Can I get a resolution, please, Mrs. Wright?
Whereas pursuant to NJSA 10-4-12B, the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education may exclude the public from that portion of a public meeting at which the board discusses any of the matters described in NJSA 10-4-12B 1 through 9. Now therefore be it resolved that the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education shall enter into closed session to discuss personnel matters. Now therefore be it further resolved by the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education that pursuant to NJSA 10-4-13B, the time when and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public is when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Thank you. Looking for a motion? Thank you. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you, everybody. adjourn, please?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second? All in favor?
Aye.